Why do we do change? Why do you innovate? And again, it's not because we can build it, it's because there's a problem. And when you look at testing, specifically performance and load testing, you know, there's been a dominant player for, how many years? 21 years now. Mercury Interactive, now HP, LoadRunner's product, has been around since 1989. And so the first instinct I had, well, why should I build a testing company if the market hasn't changed that much? You know, clearly they've done a great job, and therefore maybe there's not a need for something like that. Until I began to have what I consider my own problems. We were only able to do a certain amount of testing, and of course we weren't able to do the kind of scale testing or the frequency. We crashed and we lost customers. And it was a big crash. It lasted for a period of time at a very critical point of time. And at that point in time, I realized something had to change. When I first started going around after having the crash and losing the customers and rebuilding, and we're doing fine, by the way, we've recovered nicely, but it took a while and it was a lot of hard work, as I think all the business folks in the room would get. But what I found was, you know, and although these are newer experiences and newer reports and newer environments, is I wasn't alone. You know, in fact, in the Silicon Valley, the truth be known, the dirty little secret in the Silicon Valley is 99.9% of the companies that are startups are not doing performance testing at all. And the primary reason for it is they can't afford it or could not afford it in the past. What's changing here and why these particular sites, you can see there's some pretty interesting names in here, like Zynga is beginning to measure performance. You know, obviously Zynga is a gaming, maybe not so obviously here, but it's a gaming site for Facebook. When Facebook goes down, they estimate they lose $10,000 of revenue. They're beginning to analyze the impact of latency, and they're analyzing it in the impact of lost sales. It indicates a game change here that we're actually looking at latency as an impact to sales. Again, it's not about the numbers, and I think these two companies are leading edge consumer-facing websites and get the user experience. But more importantly, they're measuring what the impact of poor performance are, and that's a big game changer than it was 10 years ago. The fact is we only had maybe 10,000 or so applications, web applications back in 2001, and now we're over 1 million web applications, and these applications are quite a bit different, and so we're going to do some time to explore it. You know, iPhone 4 came out in June or May of this year, and past year, and they spent about $600 million on marketing at Apple, and they spent about $100 million on the iPhone marketing campaign. Really great commercials, and predominantly those commercials were pushing people towards signing up on a specific date at a specific time. This is really important because all of us, it's not about IT, it's about marketing. And what's going on right now, and we'll talk more about this, is this event-driven marketing concept of pushing somebody towards a website for a very specific time and place. And of course, at 12:30 after opening up at midnight, the site crashed. It was just overwhelming load. And what was more specific to that was the inability to predict load, which if I go throughout my customer base in the United States and around the world, it's the #1 problem. No one can predict load in today's marketplace. What causes epic fail? And I apologize for that use. Well, there's all kinds of reasons for it. It could be design, but the architects are having a heck of a time trying to figure out HTML5 versus Flash, when to use it, should it be 33 seconds or 27 seconds, and a lot of data that, frankly, they haven't had the ability to simulate. Streaming video is right behind it, or more and more streaming video, and different platforms for streaming video is starting to come out as we go forward. And then the load issue and frankly, the unpredictability of load is probably the more substantial element of the problem set. And then databases, we see a lot of different database problems in clusterings and things like that and such. And then load balancers. Load balancers become more and more of a problem out there because, again, if you don't know the load, how do you balance your load balancers? Do you need bigger load F5 servers? Do you got to have different switch settings? There's all kinds of different reasons why applications and architectures fail, yet the tools that I was using in 2001 gave me snapshots. I could get a Gomez snapshot of how the end user experience was, or I could get a Wiley snapshot of how my servers were doing at any given point in time. But I never got that single view, and I never got it associated to, well, what were those users doing at that moment in time? And all of that data never came together for me, and that was a particular reason why we began to look at SOASTA. I think what's different for me over the 32 years is that we've been building applications that I would call our employee-based applications for 32 years. And so when the site went down, the impact of performance was minimized by the fact that they were on your payroll. You may have a customer they're talking to that's impacted, but you weren't impacted into the enormous ways that we are impacted now, that these applications are going directly to consumers. And that's one of the big problem sets that are changing. Or event-driven marketing is changing everything and should scare the dickens out of anybody in IT, because I think marketing people are beginning to get it. They're beginning to understand the impact of pushing folks towards a website and the enormous value that they can get out of that, and that everybody in this room and beyond should be worried about that, because it's going to change all kinds of chaos, or cause all kinds of chaos as we go forward. Just scale, the enormous scale that we're seeing. And then business agility is a huge factor for all of us, whether it's the development side or the test side of the fence. It's not going away, it's getting faster and faster, and it's all about the digital consumer. You know, the concepts of bricks and mortar, malls and such are done. And the marketing guys are lining up with strategies around it. They're being impacted by success. You know, when Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, in his inauguration speech, he knocked down every website in the world because all of us were at work when he was speaking, and all of us wanted to get on different sites to see it. But now you can be watching the Milan shows or the New York shows or all these shows from the internet, and that's changing the impact. But at the same time, it's a new issue associated with performance. How do you get these high-gloss pictures or streaming videos to perform so that people actually want to come back more and more often? Ultimately, other events like Cyber Monday, which is created somewhat by the shipping industry because it's the last day of free shipping before the holiday season, causes an enormous impact on UPS and FedEx and all of those guys. And I mentioned this, then it kind of moves out into the actual companies that are being created around events and event marketing. Gilt Group is this really interesting company. It's only been around for a couple years that, again, as I said, is a high-end merchandising sales. You can't even go to their site unless you're invited. And this company has gone from 2007, when it was launched, to a $500 million revenue company in just a couple years. And this is the impact of the internet. The promise of the internet has been talked about for 10 years. The reality of the internet is happening today. And that means we need game changers, because the traditional ways of doing things, and certainly technologies from 1989, are not going to get it done. And so crowdsourcing concepts, other opportunities have to change. So in terms of the applications, a new set of applications, and I don't mean Web 2.0. I don't actually know what Web 2.0 is anymore. I'm talking about a whole new way of designing applications, a whole new way of building applications, certainly a whole new way of testing applications, deploying applications. Everybody wants to talk about the cloud. We've been using cloud for 4 years. We're probably one of the largest cloud consumers in the world today. We consumed over 150,000 cloud servers in the last 18 months. It's not about the cloud. It's about these apps. It's really about the business and consumerism. But the cloud is one of the key elements of how do you deploy it.